Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Arden, and today we're reviewing Avengers number 38, which actually really is just the basic premise of this particular review because this book's actually a little old. Avengers at this point is deep into its Phoenix saga, but this book is kind of its own little standalone thing, a bridge between the stuff with Moon Knight and all the business surrounding the Phoenix Force. However, I feel as though it represents a good little jumping off point for a lot of stuff far beyond the Phoenix Avengers business, which we'll do a separate review for, and into the more intimate details of not only the future of this series, but as oh boy, oops, let's turn that ringer off for a second. Um, but oh, I also need to I was just about to broadcast out that we're doing things, and I guess since we're in a casual stream, I can do that right now and just posting on Facebook and Reddit and Twitter and the like, of which we all have. We have pages for all of those social media platforms, and you should feel free to join if you desire. There we go. So it is kind of a discussion beyond just this one issue. In fact, that's kind of like a really small part of what I want this video to be about. This is more of what I think, because there's some people online who think that this whole stuff with Mephisto and all this Avengers business is kind of a signal of where even the MCU might be going. And I want to kind of give some air to that and my thoughts on the future of all of this, of Marvel, of the Avengers series, of the MCU, relative to this series and WandaVision as well. This isn't a review of the latest episodes of that, since I assume I'm also going to do that, but we will talk about how, we're talking about the future of the MCU, so certainly it will be relevant. So, a big definition of what we're talking about today, but that's just because that's why I'm just reviewing this one book. I felt this book was kind of worth talking about on its own, while the Phoenix stuff going on with the Avengers is its own thing in its current issues. And so I've been kind of sitting on this one for a little bit with the intent to discuss things. And as WandaVision keeps coming out, I've been kind of watching each episode and thinking about it because it does potentially change things, but I'm much more confident about some of the stuff I was saying about WandaVision earlier. We'll probably get into that later. Kenneth Robinson, thank you for joining. Feels like it's been a while since I've streamed. I did do it on Monday, but it was kind of just a quick little one and a pretty quiet one. So this should be fun to chat a little bit about some of this stuff and maybe let some more viewers trickle in, unlike me kind of getting in before we got too much of a discussion going last time because maybe I was a little pooped. You guys might get an inkling as to why later. I did play around with some chat settings, so you can only do it every 20 seconds. Just sort of a balance to maybe slow down the scammers a little bit, but hopefully not so much that it's oppressive to people who are just chatting. So 20 seconds is my attempt at a balance. Now that I'm saying it all out loud, 10 might make a little more sense to me, but in the meantime, I guess let's talk about this issue in particular. It's written by Jason Aaron and Ed McGinnis, which is interesting. I just assumed it was just Jason Aaron. Inks are Mark Morales, and coloring is by Jason Keith, lettering Corey Petit. These are all pretty familiar names to the world of this series of Avengers at this point. We've covered all of this before. We do flash back here and there to a few, throughout time, but we start with a few centuries ago. This guy, desperate for food on this caravan in Kansas, starving and like praying for any sort of relief, and Mephisto approaching because he's been with this world for so long and has been scheming this whole time. And we'll talk a little bit more about Mephisto later on. Kenneth says, love the streams. Have you enjoyed Jason Aaron's Avengers run so far? Well, we've talked about this run before. If you want to, I would say probably just type in Avengers and look at our most recent videos. We do have some streams of, unfortunately I'm also reviewing the whole Avengers series right now, so that might be somewhat difficult to find, but I feel it should be doable. I'll post the links after the fact, on this stream video, so you can check it out that way too. Because I have talked a little bit about this series as a whole, We are also going to do a whole episode of grading the Avengers on Jason Aaron, so I have been playing some of those cards a little close to my chest. And we still will. But I did actually really dig into it in my review of the Moon Knight story arc, particularly kind of dancing around the fact that overall I do enjoy it, even if Moon Knight was definitely a step backwards, as much as I love the Moon Knight character. Uh, I have enjoyed it. I seem to enjoy it more than the average critic or fan, but I appreciate what's going on. I will talk more about it in the grading episode, which we're getting to do faster and faster every day, to be honest. But I think what's interesting about it is everyone takes different stuff out of the series. What appeals to me doesn't necessarily appeal to other people, even people who don't like the series, and it's all very complicated. So that's me kind of dancing around it. But broadly speaking, yeah, I like it. I liked this issue. I really think, let's put it this way, it really is doing different things than the 11 episodes thus far I've put out of grading the Avengers. I had to choose my words carefully because I've scripted and recorded 12, which will be out soon. So, but yeah, Tevia Smoka, thanks for joining us. Oh, okay. See, Tevia speaks or types in a way that is a little fragmented, and he does it in two different chunks, but he did that easily with the 20-second delay, so that's a good sign for me that it works for people who are genuinely here to have a conversation. My day's going pretty good. I can share with you guys that I booked both of my vaccine appointments because I am a frontline healthcare worker. And if anything, it's been disgustingly slow, and I have a lot of resentment over that with the federal government of Canada. Oh, okay, wait, I gotta be careful what I say beyond that, though, so I will not comment any further. Oh, well, okay, I could probably skirt that, but I'm just gonna go ahead and not say much. But at least it's happening. Sage the Geek, thanks for joining us in chat. Said yo, so I'm saying hi. But after we cut to Mephisto making some deals in the Old West, basically, we go back to the future, which is also very, all this time jumpy stuff is very Jason Aaron. If you look at his Astonishing Spider-Man and Wolverine run, he plays around with that, even though it's just like a little mini-series. And this Avengers run reminds me of that miniseries a lot, actually. Just in broad strokes. Some of the tone and the way Jason Aaron goes about things. What I like about both that miniseries and the Avengers is very similar. Tevi says, oh, speaking of Mephisto, how do you feel about Amazing Spider-Man's number 60 that came out this week? I think I've ordered that, but haven't read it yet, or even been able to go to the comic book store to pick it up or any of my books recently. So I can't comment, but if I bought it, it does mean I will eventually review it. So let's put it that way. I did not know it would be relevant to this stuff, but they keep teasing Mephisto and Spider-Man, and it really does seem as though Mephisto is this big recurring theme in a lot of flagship Marvel books, which is relevant to some stuff we'll be talking about as we go on. Meanwhile, the Avengers are freaking out because they know the Phoenix is arriving on Earth, as one does. And then Mephisto is also doing all this stuff in present day, and it is extra creepy. Jason Aaron really does the dark, creepy stuff. In Avengers Mountain, Doctor Strange, Iron Fist, and Ghost Rider, who are kind of taking stock of basically like Khonshu stealing all their powers, but they're looking at the Starbrand child, because Starbrand is this big, powerful force that is created to deal with these cataclysmic things that affect the cosmos, and it's been conferred onto this little baby with the expectation that it's probably going to be needed with whatever's going on in Jason Aaron's future plans, which might be Mephisto as his end game. I think Mephisto might be like not even the final boss, so to speak, to borrow like a video game term, but it might be something more big and involving the Celestials, or even Mephisto somehow co-opting them or something. But the rest of this is all about build up to the Phoenix. Phoenix bad, Phoenix not good. Like I said, we'll do a whole separate review for that stuff, maybe even more than one, depending on how I time it all out. Um, and then we cut to 4 billion years ago. Because remember all that stuff about how Earth is not so much this favored expectation of the Celestials, but kind of the result of a Celestial happening to have died on our planet billions of years ago. And its bloody, bloody goo bled out into our primordial ooze and sort of informs why this iteration of Earth has all these superheroes that are more powerful than anything else in the universe, apparently. So that's why it's one of my favorite details of Jason Aaron's Avengers. And then we learn in this book, and this is kind of why this book gets its own little special review, apart from all the other Avengers books. And we learn that Mephisto's been here, sowing his seeds the entire time. And I just thought that was such a cool little detail. But they also kind of get into some stuff where like he's been whispering in the ear of Apocalypse, Hulk, or like whatever primordial Hulk thing that they're gonna be. They have some announcement about that coming in April, I believe. And I'm trying to figure out what this last one is. Oh, the Doom Planet? Yes. So that's a little reference to the future. And it's just talking about how Mephisto has just always been there. Like in this Khonshu story, where like there's just endless waves of Mephisto attacking the old god. He's just this constant present threat. And then we cut to Earth 1,000,000 years ago for the Avengers of the Caveman Past that we've been introduced to throughout the run of the Avengers thing. And a little child Thanos is menacing them for some reason. While once again we see Mephisto like crawling around and doing his thing because he's always been there. Centuries ago, it's him sowing chaos as like Thor wars with Apocalypse. A few years ago, it's informing the Hulk and doing like some initial rampage against the Avengers, which actually that's what that moment was. Sorry, I lost sight of things. And then we cut to, yeah, like Thor and his children. Jason Aaron's awesome at the sort of like bringing together all of his stories into this neat little narrative arc, fighting Doom, the Living Planet, for those that have read the Spider-Man and Wolverine story. And yeah, then we kind of cut to one of Mephisto's other vessels or servants. That would be Howard Stark. So, Mephisto is clearly this big threat. And like I said, I do like this idea of him just existing across time and always being there. Never really stop him or permanently defeat him. He just seems to be able to keep springing up. It's a very interesting idea. And so some critics have been voicing this thought of Mephisto being the next big villain, just like all these other clickbaity articles were out there last year about this revolving around Secret Invasion. And to be honest, while I find, like I said, I find the idea of it maybe in service of Jason Aaron's story for the Avengers, beyond that, and even beyond that, I'm actually okay with it for the MCU. But there's this pattern, and I think to a degree WandaVision was designed and released in a way to encourage this pattern of, and I said it earlier, these clickbait articles of endless hype and speculation. And to be fair, we are guilty of that because YouTube wants that sort of thing and feeds off of it. But it's all designed to get people being like, oh, Quicksilver, Evan Peters' Quicksilver is in WandaVision, which he is, and it is awesome. Like I said, I probably will do a separate review for all that stuff later. And I'm sorry we're just doing all these different things, but I want to kind of... Some of these discussions are so big, we can't also review WandaVision right now, for example. So that's why I say, like, yeah, we're cutting out and carving this one narrow discussion, mostly about Mephisto, and whether or not he's the next big bad villain of the MCU, like some people are saying. But like I said, the way Marvel and this whole media machine churns, I'm getting a little sick of it. I'm tired of the whole little game and gambit of guessing and thinking and overly analyzing and reading into every little square inch of WandaVision, when, like I said in my first review for that series, I don't say this with animosity or anything, but it's just a show about Wanda grappling with Vision's death and figuring out her place in the world. And that's all this show's been so far. And I love it because of that. It's a very interesting character piece. They did some really bold and interesting things, like with sitcoms and playing around with television genres, and then actually, in the most recent episode, tied it all together. So it is not some House of M event. It is not some big reveal. I would be shocked. And to be fair, it would be a good surprise if any form of Magneto or anything shows up. What I think it's a real discussion of is Wanda's character and her place in the world, like I said. And it really kind of gets into her powers and stuff. So maybe there will be some little kicker at the end for the next Marvel project, but that's the MCU's game plan. They don't build stuff around like Easter eggs and stuff, or at least they shouldn't. When they're at their best, they're just telling a story and maybe throwing in a teaser at the end. And I think Gage, and I'm guilty of, like, I got excited about Chris Evans potentially being in the series, and I'm guilty of that. I let the hype and excitement get to my head because it's not that that sort of thing couldn't or shouldn't happen. It's that this wasn't what the show was going to be about. It was pretty clear from the beginning, and it's followed that trend ever since. But I'm not against it. I actually think that's the way to do it. So as far as like, oh, well, like, is Mephisto going to be a thing? It might be the case. I really do think the game plan is to build the next big Marvel story arc around introducing the Fantastic Four and the X-Men. And if it were me, and often Kevin Feige does seem to do the kind of decisions I would do, I would just go full throttle with either Secret Wars content or just kind of building it all around Doctor Doom. But I think you can kind of do both, and I really would like some sort of Secret Wars event to sort of inform Marvel kind of being rewritten as a new reality with the X-Men and having Doom be a centerpiece of that story. What I would do. No, I've kind of been ignoring chat for a minute just so I could get that thought out continuously. But that was the big essence of what I wanted to talk about today. And now I see there's a whole bunch of chats. Let's start reading what you guys had to say. So Sage the Geek says, this Avengers run honestly has been the best read in a while. Well, I don't know if I go so far as to say the best read broadly, but as far as Avengers go, I really do like it. I don't want to give away too much of grading, but it does favor well against a lot of other Avengers books. Yeah, screw you too, coppers. I don't know how loud that was for you guys, but it was real loud in here. Hevia says, I wonder how this will affect Heroes Reborn. And he says Doom Planet. I assume, yeah, you're talking about that whole thing. I think that's what it's called with the Mephisto's Squadron Supreme, who is controlled by Agent Coulson, who is controlled by Mephisto. I assume it's all related. But the way I kind of see it in terms of Jason Aaron's story is we got like the big Phoenix story. We probably have some other story or something in between that. And then we're probably going to dive into the event Heroes Reborn and all of that stuff with Mephisto behind it. And I have a feeling then we're going to get into whatever other stuff Jason Aaron is building up to. I don't think it's all around Mephisto, but I could be wrong. Kenneth said, I know you'll speak on it later, but do you think we'll see Mephisto in WandaVision? I heard that China might not like that. Oh, I haven't heard anything about that. I guess that would be a concern, but I wonder if that's just open speculation. I feel as though if Disney wants that villain, they'll just go for it. Like at this point, they'll try and fight it or be like, he's just some demon. Usually that stuff revolves more around Ghost or something like that. We'll see. I don't think either way that Mephisto will. That gets into the stuff I was saying about speculation and all that earlier. If there's going to be a cameo appearance in WandaVision, it's probably going to be something that teases Falcon Winter Soldier or one of their other upcoming movies like Doctor Strange. We know Wanda is going to be in Doctor Strange, so in all likelihood it is that. And they're also going heavy into mysticism in WandaVision right now. So I guess my guess is, yeah, we'll probably see, and probably not Benedict Cumberbatch, but maybe a character from Doctor Strange. I guess it could be Mephisto, but I would say more is likely something to tease the whole multiverse situation. Unless Mephisto is the villain of Doctor Strange, which could be a thing, because not only could you introduce him that way, it also that kind of movie is going to struggle with the Chinese release anyways, so Marvel might kind of link up two things together in that regard. In which case, I would not expect it in WandaVision because of all that stuff. Tevia says, "Oh yeah, I remember that was Spider-Man and Wolverine's story. That was really weird with the Doom Planet. I thought that was cool. That's the kind of thing that Jason Aaron's is sort of fun for. Is he's sort of has all these interesting little details. He's also sort of building in his own little meta continuity. Scott Snyder does this. David Lynch does this, not in comic books, obviously, and even people like Bendis do this. But in the case of Jason Aaron, I like his Thor stories. I like his Astonishing Spider-Man versus Wolverine miniseries, and I like this. So him bringing it all together is just like more dessert to me. Why would I ever object to that? And I get it. Some people don't like it. There's certainly issues with Jason Aaron's Avengers. It just lost connection for a second, but everything seems okay. Or like not even connection. YouTube just went funny for a minute. But regardless, where were we? Tevye says, so will Mephisto affect everybody within Marvel Universe like the X-Men, Spider-Man, and the Avengers? Oh, right, because we did kind of touch on that a little earlier. Yeah, they do seem to be kind of having this bigger thing with Mephisto. My guess is just because it's part of this larger crossover event, as has been revealed. And maybe Spider-Man in particular has some role to play in that. I know what your guys are kind of teasing there, because there's all that stuff with One More Day, but I feel like if they were going to do that, they would have done it by now, but maybe this is the chance to do it. I don't even see the point anymore. Really, it was just Spider-Man needed to be written more like a human, and that remains an ongoing struggle in the Spider-Man series, so I'm pretty iffy about it. But I also haven't checked in on Nick Spencer's Spider-Man in a little while. The last couple issues I reviewed I hated, though, so that wasn't a good sign. Kenna says, it seems they are pushing him to the forefront. I would be disappointed if he wasn't introduced, referring to Mephisto. I would be too, but I wouldn't necessarily want it to be in WandaVision. We've got a lot of stuff going on with WandaVision, so let's not do it there. I would rather a whole like movie or other series that really revolves around introducing Mephisto. There's also this Hellstrom series that I didn't see nothing about, but is on Disney Plus's new Star thing, and I have access to that, so I'll probably be checking it out at some point. That'd be a cool way to introduce Mephisto. I don't even know if it's technically an MCU product, though, or not. So, your guess is as good as mine, everybody. Tevye says, so we won't be getting mutants in the MCU. That's a shame. Oh, I don't... not immediately. I really thought, and still think, people were a little over eager to think it would happen as soon as WandaVision. I still think that is way too soon. It's going to be like a whole Avengers movie to introduce it, and those aren't on the immediate horizon. So I would say we all need to be a little patient, unless they want to do Deadpool at some point. But I don't think like they plan on diving into like those X-Men characters until they're good and ready for it. We know next up is kind of the Fantastic Four, and I don't think the X-Men are showing up before that. Let's put it that way. Marvel likes to take their time, and it's paid off in every instance they've done so. So I don't think they're going to change in this regard, and I don't think they should. Introducing the mutants and pretending that they've been there all along would be really hacky, and I'd rather them dig into it a little bit and have some fun and be like, we're going to remake the world, which also opens up a whole window of possibilities when it comes to casting and stuff like that. So, thumbs up for me. Sage the Geek says, do you think the MCU will bring the X-Men in with Hickman's story or like another origin story? That's a good question because I was talking about Secret Wars. I don't think, when I say Secret Wars and I say Doom is the linchpin, clearly I am referring to Hickman's run, and I do think it's a solid way to introduce it, but obviously that you can't pull off that exact thing. It's too complicated and people aren't going to get all the weird references to build it. What I would do, and what I'm 99% certain they're going to do, is they're going to take the original Secret Wars from 1984, the cool new one, smush them together and find a way to turn it into a movie. And one of the ways that I would go about it is I would start introducing incursions as soon as possible, starting with Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, since it gets into all that stuff, so that they can kind of build up to it. Maybe they will, maybe they won't, but they should. And Kevin Feige, at his core, is a comic book fan and might be smart enough to have read that story and put this all together and also have that plan in mind, but also be smart enough not to be introducing incursions right out of the gate, because you gotta like slowly get people towards the idea of a multiverse first. For the average comic book fan like me or most of you guys, it's an easy concept to wrap your head around, but for the average viewer and the average like fan of the MCU, this stuff might be very new to them, and I think it is worth slowly teaching it to them, which I have always thought from day one. Since we learned the title of Doctor Strange's movie, that was the goal of that. It's like, okay, well, that's our first taste of the multiverse right there. But really, that's kind of been WandaVision. Though it technically hasn't existed in the multiverse, we've certainly started exploring those ideas here. Especially with the introduction of Evan Peters as Quicksilver. When I say there's going to be no X-Men, it's not like we can't have cool stuff like that. Remember, the Doctor Strange movie takes place in the multiverse. There's no reason we can't have the X-Men show up as early as that, even if they aren't fully amalgamated into the MCU's Prime Earth. Think about that. The MCU having a Prime Earth and other worlds for a little while. That would be pretty cool. That seems to be the case. Unless the Multiverse of Madness title is some sort of red herring, in which case, because Marvel does do that sometimes too, and I am going to be so frustrated because that's such a tease. They really have to live up to that title. Let's put it that way. It kind of says, always appreciate your theories. Yes, but most of these are opinions, theories, desires, and should be treated as such. So I wouldn't be like, hang on a second. Okay. Just expecting something to happen at some point. So, any minute now. Yeah, I'm not saying anything is going to happen for sure. However, because he said that, I am going to take 1 second. Missing a light here. I look really dark because it's getting darker outside. I'm going to see if that looks a little better. Yeah, that looks a little better. Anyways, what was I saying? Oh, getting up and doing that really distracted me. But about my theories, I am going to take a quick moment to pat myself on the back a little bit, because as early as episode 1 or 2, I kind of clocked in that Agnes Harkness was not good news in WandaVision, and I was right as hell about that. So sometimes my theories are dead on. Other times they're dead wrong. So I do not want to like false advertise myself. I also want to get a little closer to the camera. I know like it's a weird time, 28 minutes in, to be like fiddling around with how I look, but the lighting changed and I think I moved a little bit, so I wanted to get it better. Sage the Geek says, yeah, my favorite story in Marvel so far is House of X and Powers of 10. That's a big statement to make. However, it is also one of my favorite stories. Maybe, I don't know, I don't want to get into like the overall or how much, but I do love House of X. And I've talked about it on this channel before, but to me, and I've said this before and people get a little mad, but and I know it's a controversial opinion, but again, it's just my opinion. I like it and think it's a little more, if they follow up on it, which so far they have been, it's more important of an X-Men story than even some of the Claremont stuff. Like, obviously you kind of need the Claremont stuff to inform the House of X stuff, just as much as you kind of need the Stan Lee stuff to inform the Claremont stuff. But that's how comics work. I just love House of X so much. And realistically, if we're talking about directions we want to see the X-Men go, there's so much talk of House of M and all that stuff. I do not care about House of M. It is a wildly overrated story that has some cool ideas but barely explores its own alternate universe. So I'm glad we haven't really touched base with that at all. If you want to take a cool X-Men story and if you want to kind of take the X-Men in a new direction, they absolutely should go in the House of X direction, because we've seen the mansion. We've been there. Let's get Krakoa going. Let's get people introduced to that. I wouldn't even start with House of X. I would start with a story like Giant Size X-Men #1, where we introduce Krakoa and have all that crazy stuff happen. And then do some other stuff, and then do Krakoa, just to really hammer it all home. maybe even take the long road and like go through decimation and like the purifiers, all that stuff. Make it a real struggle and make people understand why the X-Men chose their own nation with power and all that stuff. Because it really gave that moment a lot more significance when you consider what the X-Men went through in the modern age. Mike Waite says, yes, WandaVision is very, very well done, but does not have to introduce Mephisto, mutants, Kang, or anyone else. Tee up Falcon Winter Soldier in any way equals a bonus. Oh man, well Mike, that's a perfect summary of what I've kind of been saying. I really appreciate that comment because I fully am behind what he's saying there. Obviously he's agreeing with me in the first place, but yeah, we don't have time to introduce anyone else. Don't listen to those clickbait articles or all those other like channels like Screen Rant that are going off that stuff. They just are seeking that CPM, man. And like maybe we'll get a tee up for Falcon Winter Soldier. I think that would kind of be wanted. We are post-credit scenes are interestingly kind of creeping into WandaVision, so I would expect a big one at the final end of the show. And Kenneth Robinson says Mcginnis art is amazing, although that's true. But I do want to stress most of the art here we're seeing is not Mcginnis. He did the cover and maybe even that little intro page, but the main artwork is by Mark Morales, I believe. Wait, he did the inks. Oh, so Ed McGinnis did the pencils. Oh, that's a weird way to credit him, but okay. I blame how the book wrote that out, though. Yeah, Ed McGinnis is awesome, and a core part of what, like a huge part of what makes this Avengers series so strong. I thought, because this is kind of a filler issue that's bridging one story out to the next, I thought it was like Mark Morales did most of the artwork, but now that I'm looking at it, I just wasn't paying enough attention. And I agree with what Kenneth says. Tevia says, any opinion on Amazing Spider-Man number 60 and that massive reveal on Spider-Man's soul apology for this? Well, you asked me about that before, and I said I have that book on order and we'll review it later. So maybe you were just repeating yourself because chat went far enough along, but I don't know what you want from me. I said that already. Ramon says there is no Disney Plus in China in reference. Oh yeah, so sorry, I was okay. It's all good, Tevia. Ramon says there is no Disney Plus in China in reference to what we were saying earlier. Yeah, okay. Well, there's your answer. So they can really do whatever they want on these shows, which is kind of cool. Cryptic Zecker 415. It does feel like Wanda. Sorry, I will read your comment. Oh, Cryptic Zecker 415. Hi, thanks for joining us. I realized you were just saying hello. But I was gonna say, it feels as though they gave more creative freedom to like WandaVision and stuff. Let them kind of do their own thing without as much scrutiny as some of the movies, maybe. But I hope they kind of just do that in general. Tevia says, yeah, that Hellstrom series isn't in the MCU. Well, that might be a good way to eventually introduce like a multiverse kind of thing then. That's boring though. Why would they do it that way? Tevia says, oh, speaking of Spider-Man, how do you feel about the Sorry, I say that's boring just because you don't have to have all these MCU Easter eggs. You can just kind of have that be completely swept to the side. No news reports about some incident referencing an Avengers movie. No, nothing. Just let it just be a story about Hellstrom, and then like later you can do a tie-in. But the nice thing about multiverse is, as we've learned with the CW, is you can always leave that window open in the future. Tevi says, oh, speaking of Spider-Man, how do you feel about Spider-Man title No Way Home? Because a lot of people feel that movie may be Spider-Man the last time in the MCU. Well, that's apparently the deal reached between Sony and Marvel. I don't know. I really don't know what Sony's plan is. I think they're idiots to... They have such a cool in to potentially like even share some profits with Disney with Spider-Man that they should be more cooperative. Let's put it that way. And maybe let Marvel take on some more of the costs or something or whatever. They're so weird. But that movie wasn't even supposed to happen. Sony wanted to pull out completely. And I feel as though it's a lot of gamemanship on their part. Eventually they will play ball with Marvel. Or Disney. Disney is more an accurate way to put it, but whatever. Mike says, like the incursion idea, more secret raids than Secret Invasion. Oh, okay. I kind of get what you're saying. Yeah. Or just call it Time Runs Out. I think that's a wonderful title. K Sive says, but I think incursions would be fun. And there's so many. When the incursions were happening in Marvel's comics, you'd have books where, like in Deadpool, he would just randomly stumble on one and just see this giant red planet on this sky, and you can just imagine. Like, it's so easy for me to imagine that scene in my head, and it would just be very fun for Marvel to have that stuff in play for a while, building towards the Secret Wars event or movie or whatever. And it's just so effective. I really, I don't know if Hickman intentionally designed it that way, but I really, really kind of think there's a real direction there. Not that Marvel has to do it. There's actually like a million different things they could do. But if they want a blueprint for the best way to go about it, and it has like an interesting story arc for Doctor Strange, I don't know. I guess you'd have to do something different with Iron Man and Captain America, but you could kind of sub in those roles for like Black Panther and Captain Marvel. Let those two fill it in and kind of go from there. A lot of interesting stuff you could do is all I'm saying. And Thanos, I guess he did die, but he has an interesting story to play in all that too. And there's all kinds of ways he could come back. So many ways. Because you're dealing with a multiverse and a story that's already in like a series that's already introduced the idea of time travel. So many things one could do. Tevia says, not sure what that's in reference to, so I'm just going to skip by it actually. Cryptic Zecker says, yeah, one of my favorite Marvel books at the moment is Black Widow by Kelly Thompson. The first arc is basically Natasha's version of For the Woman Who Has Everything. Yeah, I actually haven't read all those books, but I think I checked out like the first issue maybe or something, and it's strong as hell. I'm right with you there. That book was kind of supposed to come out to coincide with the Black Widow movie. On here, I was expecting something so long ago. I have a feeling someone's just like watching me in their car. Anyways, but that is really awesome and strong. Or okay, maybe not. I'm trying. Sorry, I'm thinking out loud here. Highly recommended. We'll have to review that at some point or another. K5, I believe she says, can Giant Size be a flashback in reference to what I was saying about making that a movie? I guess so. It doesn't have to be though. The X-Men continuity is so fluid and all over the place. You really could just kind of have that be the direction, or maybe like introduce the original X-Men, have them have a movie, then have Giant Size X-Men happen, introduce the next wave. Then I would, if it were me, I would do Second Coming and be like, all right, now we're gonna do Vulcan and all this other nut stuff, and people would be like, what's it, this Krakoa thing? And then like you can kind of go in that direction. But like I said, I would also just dig deep and like just really have the X-Men seriously face extinction, for them to kind of justify going a little more aggro when it comes to Krakoa. But that's just me. That's also a lot of movies I'm outlining, but that's what I would do. I'd be like, well, there's no need to have an end to X-Men movie, so let's invest and take some time, like the MCU likes to do. Zach Taft, thanks for joining us, but Hevia says, would you do Avengers versus X-Men? That is a good question. I would be inclined to do something like that eventually, but I would also do a completely different story, like from the ground up. No Phoenix Force. I don't think that's a good enough reason for the Avengers to go to war with the X-Men. If you want a good reason for the Avengers to go to X-Men, I would use the Krakoa stuff. That seems like more than enough to provoke a war of some, or a conflict of some kind. What I would take from Avengers vs. X-Men is some of their kick-ass action scenes. I would pit Iron Man against Magneto, for example. I would put Colossus against some sort of Hulk. But the Iron Man versus Magneto thing, that I would take from Avengers vs. X-Men, because that's something that I remember to this day. There's other cool little moments, like Spider-Man has a few good parts I'd try and find room for. Again, if Marvel still has their hands on Spider-Man, I guess. Cryptic Zecker says Spider-Man in the MCU needs to last long enough to be superior. Come on, imagine Tom Holland using his actual accent to voice Otto. Well, I am imagining that, and that actually sounds really cool and would be a fantastic opportunity for Tom Holland to really try out some different stuff. Also, I would have a full superior movie without it going back to Peter Parker, and then have that be like a movie or two. Like, I would pull the Marvel move and kind of be like, it's going to last way longer than you expect. Which is kind of cool, but I, one thing I don't approve of this, but you can tell that story without the MCU. I would rather they didn't. I would rather Tom Holland threaten to sue the X-Men or the Avengers or something like that, as he did in the comics. But yeah, Sony could try and pull that stunt on their own, unfortunately. The cool thing about that too is you could have Otto be like that guy from Spider-Man 2 in Sam Raimi's movie, because he's supposed to get all older and futzed up and then put his body in Spider-Man's body. So that would be a neat little sliver of like a little nod to those old Spider-Man movies. Tevia says, let's hope they don't do Bendis' terrible X-Men Blue and X-Men Gold series, because those series were garbage. Oh, he's referring to me. Yeah, well, see, the thing is, when I say, like, dig deep and take people through most of the X-Men up until House of X, I also mean skipping over anything not worth it. Like, almost obviously, right? Like, just skip over huge chunks of it. Don't bother with any of that filler stuff. What I'm saying about preserving is, like, some stuff with Utopia, Necrotia, X-Force, and maybe that bus blowing up. Just like little things that people will remember. All the stuff with Hope Summers and like the Purifiers just laying siege to a maternity ward. More of that. And then Cable's journey with Hope into the future. Anything good I would cover, just to really give some significance to it all. And then you can also write Hope into the big shebang with House of X that way. Because she is part of that story in a big important way. Cryptic Zecker says, if you want to do the end of the X-Men movies, you got to have it be Deadpool kills the Fox universe. That's pretty cool. I would expect them to put out Deadpool 3 at some point between now and like them integrating the X-Men, and them to just kind of make some jokes about it, but otherwise it actually still technically exists in the X-Men universe and it hasn't carried over there. It would be fun for him to just kill the Marvel or the X-Men universe is what they might call it. But who's going to appear in that movie, right? Let's just put it that way. Like, we're going to kill off all those old actors and stuff. It seems almost mean-spirited. Let's put it that way. And I don't see them doing that. As fun as it could be, if they want to do something like that, they have this cool new animated What If series coming out, and that seems like a fun idea for an episode. For sure. Javier says, I really don't see them doing Superior Spider-Man. I see it being awesome, but I don't see them doing it either. Let's put it that way. Zach Taft said, they really seem to go off the map with Spider-Man movies. Sorry, before I read your comment, Zach. Oh, did I miss your first one? Zach says, so man, we going to stream Marvel's Avengers again? We haven't done that in a while. Eventually. I haven't had a productive experience with that game in a while, so I feel like I need to play it on my own and get a little better before I stream it with you guys. Zach also says, so you know Black Widow, do you think she would say this to Peter? I don't know, man. No, honestly, I don't think I do not understand your comment, so we're just gonna leave it there. Yeah, that was a nice long discussion about Mephisto and beyond. Pretty much everything I wanted. Sorry, man, I don't get what you're getting at there. But thanks for joining us. Thank you to everyone else who was joining and chatting along the way. This was a fun little stream, and we haven't done them in a while. But tomorrow, I don't know what exactly I'll be doing, but I have a couple of fun plans, so we'll just leave it at that. Well, okay, the plan is, let's put it that way, is I want to review Deceased, because we haven't covered the end of that yet, and also something from out of this continent, and off in the little world of manga, which we haven't done before. So thanks for watching, guys. See you next time, Zach. Thanks for checking in and stuff. And y'all have a good evening. Cryptic Zecker says, great show, man. Hope it make it to the next one. Hope to see you there too.